super excited about tonight. We're at the tail end of our He Would Love First series. We got one more week, and just been awesome what God's been doing through this. The last couple weeks, Drake opened up a conversation around the 5% life. A couple weeks ago, Drake talked about getting alone, allowing God to enter into our lives so that he can live through us. Last week, we talked about getting together, and that's what he was saying here in this building. We come and we worship together. This week, I want to open up the conversation about getting close. And getting close has everything to do with group time. We do city groups here at City Church, and if you're a note taker, jot this down. This is our definition of what it means to get close. Time spent consistently in community with a small group from my church. The important word there, you should underline this if you're taking notes, is consistently. You cannot build relationship, invest in people, have any kind of depth without consistency. I could come and show up to a group once every 2 months. I'm not going to get a whole lot out of that, and neither are the other people in the circle. But if I can come consistently and allow them to seep into my life and me into theirs, then we're going to start moving mountains, okay? I understand we probably have people from all different places and walks of life in the room tonight. I want you to know that you are safe here, you're loved here, you're welcomed here, and my only desire is for you to maybe get one step closer to God from where you're at this afternoon. And so as we walk through this, just keep that in mind, that what we're doing is allowing community to reshape our understanding of how God wants us to live through an overflow of the relationship that we have with him alone, that goes into the relationship that we have together here, that then cultivates through our community. I want to share a story with you guys. Drake mentioned it. Back in August, I moved here. That whole call to Boulder in general started way back in May, and he was not exaggerating. I told him no probably 10 times before I ever even considered moving to Boulder. But back in August, I got boots on the ground, drove this rinky-dink little truck up and down the mountains to get here, and along the way, met this girl named Maddie. She's actually sitting here. Everybody say hi, Maddie. Yeah, so Maddie and I became really good friends and hit it off. We do a city group together. We serve quite a bit together and hang out and whatnot. And then I realized around November that I wanted to get to know Maddie at a different level. I wanted to take things the next step. And I was like, all right, what do I need to do to make this happen? So I looked at my schedule, and I had to rearrange some stuff. But I was going to do everything under the sun possible to spend as much time as I could with Maddie. Because I was like, I want her to know that I like her. Hopefully we can date. Spoiler, we are dating, and it's going really well, to my knowledge. But despite working 40 hours a week and commuting to Denver, and then I'm having weekly commitments here at City Church as well as other commitments that I have throughout the week, it is amazing how much time that we can find in our schedules when someone enters our life that we want to have a relationship with. Can anybody agree? Right? You can't just go on one date, drop down on one knee, say, can we get married, and then show up a year later for the 1-year anniversary and think that everything is going to be okay, right? A necessity to any relationship is time. And the amount of time that you put into the relationships will show you how much depth you are able to go in those. There's no shortcuts or gimmicks or 1, 2, 3 how-tos on to do this other than developing a relationship through time. I wanted Maddie to know that I love her and know her and want her in my life, and I can't do that aside from a consistent relationship. And that's going to be the crux of everything that we're walking through here today. In the life of Jesus, we see throughout the New Testament that he models for us this devotion to time with his disciples. Before I move on, I think I can say for everybody in the room, so we can get on the same page, that we all desire to be loved, known, and wanted. Can we agree? It's a pretty good feeling when somebody loves you and knows you and wants you in their life. Gives you little butterflies or makes you happy or whatnot, right? However you define relationship, to the extent that goes, I'm a very extroverted person. I could party 24/7 and not get too much of people in my life. But I know there's other people in the room that are more introverted, and, maybe 1 hour a day or 1 hour every 5 days is enough, but you still need a little bit of people in your life. Agree? Right. Cool. Odds are most of us in the room have circles of friends that will fill up those categories in our lives. And if not all three, at least 1 or 2 of them at a time. You might have a group of friends that you run with that you go rock climbing, skiing, road trips with, and they can leave you feeling loved and known, but maybe not wanted, or loved and wanted, but maybe not known because you're not spending enough time to get into some of the more shadowy, muddier parts of the relationship, and so everything kind of stays at surface level. And whatever your context might be, what if I told you that the community that Jesus invites us into takes anything you've ever understood as relationship and blows it to the next level? He takes these three categories and applies it to our lives in such a way that we can experience love, we can experience being known and being wanted on a consistent basis. Mark 3, sorry, lost my note. Mark 3, you don't have to turn there, but I'm just going to tell you, Mark 3 is a reference to when Jesus called his disciples for the first time. He went to them and essentially said that you are invited to set off on a relational journey to do life together with me. This is Jesus speaking here. And so what I'm inviting you guys into tonight is an opportunity to set off on a relational journey inside of a city group where you get to do life together. Jesus' model for this says that we're going to do life and we're going to do it together. And because of that time and energy you spent, we all get to leave feeling loved, known, and wanted, being closer to Jesus than we did when we walked in the door, and closer to the people in our circle as we walk out. So, as we reflect on the 5% life, and I don't know if you knew this or not, you have 168 hours in a week. Some of you heard that and was like, oh my gosh, that's so much time. Some of you heard that and said, wow, that's it. You all have 168 hours. After you divvy up your non-negotiables in your schedule, family time, work, sleep, personal time, whatever it may be, the 5% life says that we should have at least 1.5 to 2 hours left at the end of the week or middle of the week, wherever your city group meets, to invest into a close group of people to where we get to do life with them. And what is cool is that where we place our time determines where our hearts place their energy. And when our hearts place energy into something, it shows value to that thing. Jesus placed his time and therefore his energy and value into a close group of people, that being the 12 disciples. And disciples is just a word for Jesus followers. That was the guys that he did life with. He spent time and valued them, and we're called to do the same. We should have a group of people in our life that we run to and invest time with and get these characteristics from. So we all want, I believe, life-giving community. The only way that we can find a consistent source of that is to be invested into a group of people who are also looking to do that as well through an overflow of their relationship with Jesus. That's the direction we're heading tonight. So my question for you as we kick this off is, where are you spending your time? Are you allowing your actions to mimic what you value? We can say all day that we value community and people and want to be close and challenged by people around us in city church or whatever it may be, but if our time does not reflect the amount of energy that we put into a group of people like that, we're missing the mark big time. We're going to be in Colossians chapter 3 today. You can go there and it'll also be up on the screen, verses 12 through 17. Before we read this, I want to make you aware. I did not know this prior to studying this particular text the last couple weeks, but there is a huge misinterpretation of this text that happens pretty consistently. It's not the end of the world kind of misinterpretation, but it does change the context of what we're talking about just enough to where it's exciting. So I'm going to read this, and after I read it, I'm going to explain to you what we miss, and then we're going to read it again, okay? So it says this: since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourselves with tenderhearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds you together in perfect harmony, and let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. For as members of one body, you are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Let the message about Christ and all its riches fill your life. Teach and counsel each other with all wisdom he gives. Sing songs and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. All right. This is the big thing. I don't know if we have any grammar Nazis in the room or English teachers, but in the Greek language, they have one word that represents both you plural as well as you singular. And when we write it down and interpret it, it comes across as just the word you. It's highlighted in blue up here. But I'm from the South, and when we want to address a single person, we'll say you. But when I want to address a group and say, talk to a community of people, we say in Texas, y'all. Can you guys say that? Y'all. Good job. So it is, sorry to anybody, English teachers, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to deal with it right now. It is incredible how much these verses change context when you apply a plural aspect to it, okay? We're going to look at it again one more time, and I'm going to get you guys to help me. Every time you see the word you, I want you guys to say y'all, and we're going to see how this thing expands and blows up right in front of us, okay? So since God chose, well, okay, hold on. We're going to have to try this again. I need everybody. When God chose, thank you, to be the holy people he loves, must clothe yourselves with tenderhearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults, and forgive anyone who offends. Good job. Remember, the Lord forgave, so must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds together in perfect harmony, and let the peace that comes from Christ rule in y'all's. That's a big one. Y'all's hearts. For as members of one body, y'all are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Good job, guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was awesome. So, Paul is addressing here a community. And I think it takes on a little bit different characteristic when we look at these things and say, all right, this is not addressed to just me. It's addressed to a body that should be utilizing and carrying these characteristics together. And that's what we're going to look at here next. The first point tonight is this. It says that without community, we cannot faithfully follow Jesus. We see in verse 12 through 14 that Paul lays out a characteristic of, if you're familiar with the passage, verses in Galatians chapter 5, where it talks about the fruit of the Spirit, that is love and joy, peace, and patience. This mimics those. They're similar. And what he's saying is that we cannot live out a life that is fulfilling as well as the life of a Jesus follower without community. Now, here's the tension that we get. Our culture today, and in our Western context, almost screams isolation. I can buy my groceries and have them delivered to my door without ever leaving my bed. I can go to, actually, my old company had this thing called Teledoc on our phone where I didn't even have to go to the doctor if I needed a prescription or a checkup or anything. I'd just call them, tell them my symptoms, then they'd send me whatever I needed through the mail. Like, no face-to-face contact. And so what happens is that sometimes this bleeds over into our relationships inside of a group of Jesus followers and says, hey, you know what? I'm okay. It's me and God. We're going to do our thing, and I don't need community. But what Paul is trying to stress here is that without community, there is no way that you can faithfully follow as well as grow and live a fulfilling life without a group of people. It says, I can't be loved. I can't have patience. I can't have joy by myself. There has to be a community. When who Christ is in me begins to live out through me, I can live out love, joy, peace, patience, etc., right? These are not optional characteristics. They're a direct byproduct of the amount of time that we allow Jesus to fill our hearts so that he then can overflow into the relationships around us and into our community. Drake said it in his announcements, but I just want to stress how important community here is at City Church. We say that if you do your 5% life graph, you come down to where you have 1, maybe 2 hours to give a week. We want you to give that hour to a city group. Because circles are better than rows, true, but I cannot see the condition of your heart from the back of your head. Nobody is going to know what you're walking through. Nobody's going to be able to help you get through it. Nobody's going to know. You can walk in here, and from the look of it right here, I'd say everybody in the room is sitting pretty good. There could be a couple of you that heard that, and it just broke you because you know your situation and what's going on outside these doors. We can put a face on in here, but if you get in a circle and you sit there for an hour or two, and you have to open up to people and let them get inside and see some of the dirty, man, it'll change your life. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to go through these characteristics together just to give us some context of how much community Paul is calling us to here. The first one we see is tender-hearted mercy. This is compassion, to feel deeply for another person so that when they hurt, I hurt. I'm going to be honest, I had struggled with this for the longest time, to have compassion for people in my circle, for friends, for family. Honestly, it was difficult for me to feel that. But there was a group of people that entered into my life about 4 years ago. This was back when I lived in Texas. Their names are Jay and Lisa. And I did life with them so tightly that, our lives were intertwined, thank you. Intertwined, so much so that, we were close. We were friends, just ran together constantly. And some situations entered into their lives that they would call the worst thing that has ever happened to them. And honestly, it is tragic, and I would not wish their situation on my worst enemy. But through that experience, God broke my heart for that family. And for the first time, honestly, I believe that compassion and tender-hearted mercy really started to unfold inside of my own life. I was able to come alongside them and not sit there and try to fix all their problems, but just put an arm around them and say, hey, I'm here with you. We're going to go through this thing together. The next one that we see is kindness. And kindness is simply compassion in action. It is seeing the hurt, knowing the need, and then doing everything under the sun to help relieve it. I watched people come around, Jay and Lisa and the Robinson family, and just try to relieve some of the hurt in exponential ways. It was amazing to watch. And for me to see that kind of compassion in action reshape my understanding of what it meant to be in community. Humility. Paul says, regarding one another more important than yourself. Can we agree that probably most of us in the room need a little bit more humility? I definitely do. To be able to lift up somebody and know that they have value, they are valuable to your life, to be able to put yourself down at the bottom pedestal is a gift from God, honestly. The next is gentleness. This is harnessing one's strengths or gifts for the good of others. I don't know about you, but when somebody goes out of their way to serve me, it makes me feel pretty good. Could you agree? And so when we enter into a community, Paul is saying that, man, you cannot be blessed if you're isolating yourself from the people in your life that would bless you. Out of an overflow of their relationship with God, they want to bless you, and vice versa. You get to see that and then bless others as well. Now, the words used here are make allowance for, but also is translated as patience. In the New Testament, there are two words most often used for patience. One having to deal with circumstances specifically, patience through trials or whatever it may be. But the word used here in Colossians 3 is literal. It means literally patience with people, able to encounter a situation and have enough patience to carry you through it, despite their differences, despite whatever friction might be caused in the group. Whenever your kids and somebody else's kids are going at it with each other, is to have patience, humility. The next one is bearing with one another, goes right along with that, to come to a consistency that is based on a reflection of Jesus. Bearing with one another is the same thing, putting up with others even when they act differently than you or different than what is expected. Seeing their weaknesses and errors and looking through those for the cause of love. Forgiving each other, showing grace. Here, not the normal word used in the New Testament for forgiveness or grace, but it's showing specific forgiveness when somebody has wronged you. I want to read you guys this quote from an author, Harold Songer. He says this: forgiveness means that the Christian continues his relationship with another person in spite of what has been done. He or she refuses to let personal pain result in ruptured relationship. Forgiveness, therefore, is a moment of holiness and grace in the life in which human weakness is recognized, human needs are exposed, and the love of God operates both in the heart of the one who forgives and the one who is forgiven. Really powerful stuff. Honestly, when I was prepping for this, for tonight, I did not know if I could pinpoint a time in my life where I had lived this out, or somebody in my life had lived this out, to give you an example. But I prayed for an opportunity, and God gave me one, and I'm not sure if I should say thank you or not yet. I had a situation with somebody in my city group the last week that required a tremendous amount of forgiveness and grace. And had we both entered into the conversation or the situation without each other's interest in mind or without these characteristics at heart, it would have resulted in ruptured relationship or a broken friendship, and we probably would have deemed the situation unforgivable and walked away from each other. But because we had humility, valued each other more important than ourselves, and saw that God could still be glorified through the situation, we were able to come at peace and let love overpower whatever feelings we had. And so it is hard at times, and I don't know what your dynamics are like inside of your current relationships that you have, but forgiveness is definitely an action that you don't do on accident, right? The last one we see here is the word love. This is the highest form of expression for love used in the New Testament, and it's used. The Greek translate it as an expression of love towards God, meaning that all the other characteristics that we just listed off are a byproduct of your love and relationship with Jesus, and through that these other ones happen. So the point being that I can only become all that God has desired me to be as I follow him to live his life through me in loving relationship with those around me. So at this point, this all might sound good, and you might have a couple questions here or there, but honestly, it comes down to a choice where you make to either engage into community or reject it. And let me be honest, you could probably, anybody in the room tonight that has had a consistent relationship, either inside City Church or outside, a consistent relationship with a group of people, said that it has done more good than it has done harm. Here at City Church, we believe that community is not what we do as a church, it is who we are as a body. And I want to invite each of you guys into that. If you're not a part of a group, if you've never given community a chance, or if you never allowed people into your life, man, maybe crack that door open and give it a try. So without community, it is impossible for us to faithfully follow Jesus, because we cannot live out or mimic the characteristics of Jesus without people in our lives. You guys got it? Cool. Second one is this. Within community, we are challenged to more faithfully follow Jesus. Sounds similar, I know, but I'm about to break it down for you, okay? We see in verses 15 through 17, I'm going to read it to you guys real quickly. Starting in verse 15, it says, "Let the peace that comes from Christ rule in y'all's hearts, for as members of one body, y'all are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Let the message about Christ and all its riches fill y'all's lives. Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom he gives. Sing songs and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever y'all do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father." Here are 3 ways that being a part of a community challenges us. The first one is this: I am challenged as I follow Jesus with others. We see this in verse 15. Base level, this means that relationships are difficult. People are hard to live with at times. The closer you get to people, the more difficult it will become, because you start to see this might surprise you guys. I'm not a perfect human. And this might surprise you more. You aren't either, okay? As you get closer and closer to people relationally, you're going to start seeing the cracks in their exterior that seep out who they really are on the inside. And if you hang around me long enough, I would not do it on purpose, intentionally, but I'll probably hurt your feelings at some point. And vice versa, honestly. As we do life together, we see the muddy parts of each other's lives. We see the shadows that we try to hide. But God is telling us, for you to more faithfully follow me, you need those kind of people in your life that are going to be able to see those, work through them together, and still maintain love for one another. I had a friend in Texas. He was a part of my city group at the church I went to back in Texas. His name was David. And David and I could be put in a lineup and would probably never be picked as 2 people that could do life together. I mean, wasn't a bad guy, great heart, but just the way that he lived his life, the issues that I had with humility and patience and stuff, just did not lend itself to a cohesive relationship. And I remember one week in particular, had I known that it was only going to be me and David there, I would have canceled or just not shown up. But everybody told me they were coming, and I get there, I sit down at the table, I'm waiting, we're at a coffee shop, and I see David walk in, and I'm instantly, oh my gosh. All right, 5-10 minutes tops, and then somebody else will show up. 5-10 minutes go by, and I realize that it's just going to be me and David tonight. And instantly heart sunk. I wanted to find a way out of the conversation. But this is what's amazing, and this is how God uses those kind of people in your life. That night started a domino effect of me learning a tremendous amount of humility in my own life, how to have patience, how to see people the way that God sees them, that despite David's differences from my own, he was created in the image of God. And that the relationship that I had with him did not have to be surface level, but if I took time to get to know him, he's actually a really cool guy. He's actually still one of my friends today, surprisingly, after hearing all that. But it is cool to see that God will show you stuff in your own life through most oftentimes the people that drive you absolutely crazy, to grow you in areas that otherwise will not have changed, so that we can become a better reflection of Jesus, so that we can live out humility, gentleness, kindness, patience, and the rest. Relational conflict and emotional brokenness have no place in the life of a Jesus follower. The difficulty of those relationships will push you, one, to intimacy with Jesus, as well as intimacy with your circle. And you cannot get there if you don't allow people into your life. Second thing is this: I am challenged as I see Jesus in others. This is probably one of the most encouraging. We see this in verse 17. I'll go back, and it says, whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. Whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of the Lord. That has the underlying tone that people are going to see what you do, and they're either going to be attracted or discouraged from following Jesus because of your representation of him. Let me give you an example. I have a girl in my city group. Her name is Ashley. I was trying to see if she's in the room. I think she's serving the kids. She's in the kids. Perfect example. All right. Ashley shows up every week and just gives like 110%. She serves constantly. And when we go to group, she always is there helping clean up afterwards, always engaging. And the reflection that she has of Jesus in her life is it's attractive and it's contagious. And the more I see her serve, the more I'm challenged to evaluate where I'm at in my life. And I'm like, man, am I doing everything that I can to serve Jesus? Am I being a representative like Ashley's being a representative? Another example, about 3 or 4 months ago, I came to my group, and I wasn't met with harsh words or judgment or a stiff arm, but I confessed that I had not had a consistent prayer life with God in a very long time. And one of the girls in the group, Lauren, said that she had used this practice that she learned of praying in the car anytime she was alone. Super simple act. Never thought twice about it before. And she said, hey, I've been able to maintain a consistent prayer life for a while by doing this. Why don't you try it? And so for a season, every time I was in the car alone, I'm not saying that I prayed the entire time, but I tried my best to have a conversation with God, and it enriched and fulfilled my life in ways I would have never otherwise had known or done through the people in my life that were following Jesus. So as we are challenged as we see others follow Jesus. The last one is this: I'm challenged as others speak Jesus into my life. This one is difficult because it requires an amount of relational equity or depth that you will never get from just spending 1 or 2 days a week together. This is where discipleship happens. That is two people coming alongside each other and helping them grow closer to Jesus. This is hard conversations. I'll be honest, there are probably only a handful of people in my life that can truly live this out, and we maintain an element of love and grace and peace. inside of it. One of those people is Drake. Drake can come to me at any time, any place, and because of the emotional depth and equity that we have in each other, the time that we have spent to build a relationship together, he is going to approach me with love and say, hey, man, I'm seeing some things in your life that are not a reflection of I know who you want to be in Jesus. And because we have that depth, I can sit there with humility and receive it. He can say, hey, man, you probably should work on this. And, the way that you're using your words in this way are not uplifting, or your actions here are not a reflective of the life of a Jesus follower. And because of the relationship that we have, it can hold those conversations. I can't have that kind of conversation with somebody at King Super as I'm walking out the door saying, hey, your life really looks like trash right now. Why don't you try to fix it? Never going to happen. And to be honest, probably a majority of us in the room, I couldn't have that kind of conversation with, and we walk away in love and grace and still maintain a deep relationship with each other. It takes an incredible amount of energy for us to be able to enter into those conversations, for us to even open up our lives to the possibility of having people that know us in such a way. And that goes beyond, I know we have several married couples in here. Man, to have people in your life, though, that can look at your marriage together, and that your marriage is so open to another couple or a couple people that you guys can walk through that together with, is encouraging, is exciting, I feel, for anybody in the room that needs that kind of accountability. I want to ask, before I close, that the band would come up and Daniel can get ready to play. But I want you to evaluate where you're at tonight, where you spend your time, where your heart places energy, what you put value in, what you allow the people in your life to see in you. And ask yourself, are you really living out all that you could be living out in the life of a Jesus follower? Vance Pittman said that he believes you cannot be a growing Jesus follower if you are not in community. You cannot be a Jesus follower if you're not in community. And I believe there's some truth to that. Without people in our lives, we cannot mimic the image of Jesus so that he is glorified. And when we do that consistently in a group, guess what? People in the room that might not know Jesus will see that and will be attracted to it. They'll look for the one or two things that are different about your circle that allow people to be known, loved, and wanted, and say, man, why don't I have that in my circle? The group that I go rock climbing with, man, I never leave that circle feeling this way. And in those opportunities, in those moments, we'll be able to point them to Jesus. And that comes from a confidence that we have in spending time with him that overflows into our relationship with each other. So are you investing your time, energy into a community that is going to allow you to grow closer to Jesus and closer into your relationships? Are the words that you're saying matching the actions or the energy that you put into your life? Are you allowing yourself to be vulnerable, open, and connected in group? It's one thing to go to the group, but you're only ever going to get as much out of it as you put into it. You can only go as deep as you're willing to open up. Or maybe you're here tonight and you've never experienced a group like this. Maybe this is the first time you've even heard of an opportunity of a relationship like this in your life. I want to invite you to find a group. I'll be here. Drake will be here. There's a couple other group leaders here that you can grab and just ask what the next step is, where to get connected. We have a term that we use called 2 a.m. friends. It's somebody that I can lean on so deeply. So I have so much trust in them that if my car breaks down at 2 a.m. in Denver, I can call these people and say, hey, man, I'm stuck. Can you come and help me? And they're going to answer the phone every time. I would hope that we all have those kinds of friends in our life. Before we close, I'm just going to pray and ask God to open our hearts the next couple minutes as we reflect on what he wants us to do tonight. Lord, I want to come to you and just thank you for the opportunity to share you and who you are, and pray that maybe we heard something tonight for the first time, maybe challenged in a way that we had never been challenged before to move closer to you, God. Whether that be into a relationship with you for the first time, to where we can feel truly loved, known, and wanted in a way that we had never had before, or open up to the idea of being a part of a community. God, I pray that each heart in the room tonight is attentive to what you want to say, attentive to what you want to do, and ready to respond. It's in your name I pray.